Hi guys, I'm Mike and welcome back to the channel and to another driver interview. And we are very lucky to be joined by, I think actually you are first Indy Lights driver onto the channel, because we've had Kyle, but obviously it's when he's gone up to compete in IndyCar now. So we have Hunter McElrea here. So Hunter, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate the time.
No problem at all. And obviously, people pick up on the accent if they didn't know Hunter already. He is another Kiwi looking to make his way into the series. And I suppose New Zealand have a pretty good track record of guys transferring to IndyCar now, with obviously Scott Dixon as successful he is. And Scott McLaughlin's got off to a great start this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's cool. Like, it's funny. One thing I will say is, like, for how tiny New Zealand is, it produces like a crazy amount of good drivers. Obviously, like you touched on, the two Scots in IndyCar. Obviously, Dixon's been in there for a long time. He's very established as one of the best of all time. Scotty's pretty crazy, obviously, coming from supercars to IndyCar. I've known Scotty. I know both of them on a personal level, which has been really cool, but I've known Scott McLaughlin for a long time. And, I knew he's very, very good. Obviously, he dominated supercars and everything, but I didn't expect him to be, as kind of dominant as he has been so quickly, like this year. So good for him. I mean, like it's very tough to do that. So he's showing what he's got, but not even in obviously the States, but in Europe, obviously there's Lawson. He's very popular over there and throughout New Zealand, and obviously myself, and there's a lot of other kind of young guys coming through too, and the guys before us. Like, for how tiny, it's like I think it's literally like 1/100th the size of USA and Europe and things like that, and little old New Zealand, I don't know what it is, but it produces a lot of good drivers. So I think the per capita, it would have to be like the best per capita, like race driver ratio, whatever you want to call it. So obviously I'm a bit biased, but I think that it's super cool. And obviously, to be honest, Australia and New Zealand, there's a lot of good drivers.
Yeah. I think you got to be biased to your home country, surely.
Yeah.
You can't be going, yeah, we're right, but so-and-so are better. You got to be like, well, those are the best racing drivers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it has to be like that.
Absolutely. So I think that probably is a good point to start off. Obviously, we'll go into this all kind of looking into your career today. So you started off in the karting scene. What's the karting scene like in New Zealand? And do you have like comparative to other countries in terms of the European karting scene in America? Do you have an idea of where it compares to on that? And did you actually compete within Europe? Because I know quite a lot of the guys do come across and do a bit of European karting.
Yeah, it's funny. So I spent most of my life growing up in Australia. I raced proudly under the New Zealand flag. My whole family's from New Zealand. And to kind of go off track real quick, I have a very confusing nationality. I get made fun of a lot. Commentators always talk about it, make fun of me, and people always, it's a bit of a joke if they don't know where I'm from. But basically, I was actually born in LA in America. My parents were living there for like a 6-year period where I was born. Then went back to New Zealand for a bit, and then they actually moved to Australia, which is where I kind of grew up since I was 5 years old. So my whole family heritage is from New Zealand. I have a New Zealand and American passport, and I've just raced under the New Zealand flag my whole life, and I'm very proud of that. But I spent most of my childhood growing up in Australia, and my story is a bit different, honestly. Like, I think you hear the same thing from all these drivers, right? It's, I went to a hire kart place with my dad. I was really fast. I really loved it. And then next Christmas, I got a go-kart. And then I went every weekend. It's the same story for literally every driver.
Yeah, absolutely.
And mine was a little different. I'm the third generation driver of my family. My grandfather drove and was a national champion in New Zealand. My dad drove and was a 2-time national champion in New Zealand. So it was always kind of in the blood, I guess, as cliche as that sounds. But then as I kind of progressed and got older, I mean, a lot of people are like, why do you want to race, blah, blah, blah. But it's all I ever really wanted to do. And again, I know it sounds, people use it so much like I was born to do this and all this stuff. But there wasn't a day or like a period of time where I'm like, that was the day that I decided to drive. It was just, it's the only thing I really always had a passion for. Just racing in general. And I first drove a go-kart. Like I begged my dad to let me drive a go-kart when I was like 7, maybe even just before I was 7. And we'd go out a couple times, but I think the way karting kind of works is I think most kids, they start and they go every weekend or twice a week for every day of the year. They have the brand new go-karts and they're just into it since the age of 7 and they're winning and all this stuff. And for me, that was not me. I was never like winning really well on go-karts. I was doing like 4 events a year, like begging my dad to go, showing up on the day of, no practice, after not driving for like 3 to 6 months. I was that Billy in the middle of the pack with like the white helmet and the mismatched suit and go-kart. And I liked it, but that was kind of my karting career, really. Like I just didn't really, my dad was too busy to consistently take me. And I did a couple years at the end, kind of, I guess you could say, with a team and things like that. And it didn't go great, honestly. Like karting never clicked for me. But I got a few good results. Like I finished in the top 3 of the Australian Championship in one race where there's like, at that point there was like 65 entries, so and I was probably like, when I say I didn't do anything good in karting, there's nothing that I would say that I was super proud of, like apart from a few things in go-karts of like what I achieved, because I want to win. I was probably like the top 10 ranked in Australia, which it's a decent achievement, but it really means nothing, to me anyway. And karting just never really clicked for me. I had a few glimmers of hope, but just the environment I was in didn't really suit me, and a lot of things really. I'm really tall. I'm 6'3", and when I was 15, I was like 6'1", and if you're over 60 kilos, you're giving away time, and there's just all these little things that just didn't really click for me. So karting honestly wasn't the best for me. I didn't really thrive in it, and by the end of it, I left with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because truthfully, and I don't even really talk about this much, honestly, but I just didn't really think I was that good. I didn't really have a fire. Like I was just kind of lost. And then the first time I actually drove a car, like my first proper test day in a car, was shockingly good. Like it was just like I was just good. Obviously you're still very green and learning a lot, but I was just very kind of, I guess I surprised myself and everyone really with like just how quick I was. A friend of mine was there who I raced go-karts with, also in the same car, and who we were always very close, and I just blew him away in the car, and I was like, like I just feel good. Like the body transfer, the weight transfer, the braking, all the big different things, the bigger track, I just liked it. It just made sense more kind of straight away. Like, and it was just this good feeling. And then I did my first race like 2 weeks later, and I think I maybe had like combined total of 2 days in the car. And then I won and I poled and won on debut, and that was kind of it really. Like I just, in cars straight away, I was just good. Like it was like, obviously.
It's a nice surprise to have that, isn't it? To turn around and go, oh, I guess I'm all right. Okay.
Yeah, literally.
Right. This is much more fun than that go-karting.
Yeah, look, it sounds stupid, but I just was having more fun. Obviously, it's more fun when you're getting better results, but it was just straight away. It was kind of just like, okay, like I'm making a lot. This whole thing makes more sense to me. I feel more comfortable. I fit in it better. There was nothing that was like I missed from go-karting, you know what I mean? And I think, to be honest, looking back, I would rather have had it like that, as much as it sucked at the time, because all the shitty days, really, and apologies for the language, but all the days where it was like, you know, you just were hating life, it kind of made me who I really am now, you know what I mean? And I went to New Zealand then.
I was going to ask that. Has that made you more hungry? Because obviously you said, you know, I've spoken to a few junior guys coming up through the system and that karting, and they've spoken about when they went actually from karting to cars, they almost had to relearn driving because it is a difference. So obviously you having not excelling necessarily in one and really kind of suiting the cars makes a lot of sense, because they are vastly different. I think a lot of people think your natural progression is cars, but do you think it made you hungrier by not racing as often, and by having it, you like going, you know what, I still really want to give this a go, but I just haven't found what I'm meant to race yet?
Yeah, like the funny thing is these karting kids, right? And I rate all the guys who used to smoke me in karts. Like 3 years later, when we were racing Nash Formula Ford, I was hosing everyone. So it's funny, like the guys who are the king of the kids in go-karts, who you couldn't touch, like who are driving every weekend, you know, you get to cars and you're racing the same guys and they're still very fast, but I smoked them all. So it's funny, like I got my ass handed to me in go-karts by all these guys, and it was nice obviously in cars, you know, to kind of give it back, but it's vastly different, because I feel like, you know, I'm kind of speaking pretty, I would say, no filter right now about the whole thing, just because it's how I am. But, you know, it for sure helped me still. Like I wouldn't have been able to transfer into cars like I did without the go-karting. Like I still learned all the basics of racecraft, racing line, all that stuff. But there comes a time where, you know, all the guys who are at the top of their game and all the elite people in go-karts, whether it's in Australia, Europe or anywhere, they're in it every weekend or like twice a week. Like they're in it all the time. And then when you get to cars, you can drive every maximum. Like for example, in lights now, like I've done a lot of testing, more than I ever have, with Andretti, and it's like on average every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, 2 weeks if you're lucky, but 3 weeks. Then you go on kind of spurts.
Yeah.
And these guys, like, they can't wrap their head around it, because it's like they're used to being in the kart all the time, and then you get in a car and you're not in it all the time. So for me, I was actually in a car more than I was in a go-kart. So I was fine with it. I was used to it. And I kind of went off track a little bit there, but for sure it's very true, because it's too, like, no one just jumps in a car and from a go-kart and just translates 100%, because there's so many things that are very different, and it takes a long time for a kid out of go-karts to get to the level of, you know, on the limit of a car. So it's just the way it is, really. And I'm not saying that, you know, kids who aren't really good in go-karts aren't good in cars, because there's always examples. There's guys who are really good in go-karts and really good in cars. There are guys like me who, for whatever reason, just weren't that really good in go-karts and seem to go okay in cars. And then there's the opposite. There's guys who are extraordinary in a go-kart, suck in cars. And, you know, I didn't suck in go-karts. Like I was quite, you know, I was decent, but just by my standards, especially looking back now of where my standards are, which is winning every weekend. That's what I want to be doing. Doesn't always work out like that, but that's just my goals, my realistic goals for myself to go-karts. Now it's like I was nowhere. So it's just the way it is. But yeah, I went to New Zealand, kind of back to my kind of career path. I went to New Zealand, and my first race car I ever raced was a 1991 Van Diemen Formula Ford, a Kent, like they run over in England. And it was the best. Like I had so much fun. I was racing in the South Island Championship and pretty much winning every race in that. And then I was racing in the National Championship in New Zealand against, you know, way more newer cars, in this car that was like 20 years older than everyone else's, which shouldn't have been racing at the front, but I really kind of learned to maximize what I had. And, I'd be finishing in the top 3, almost winning races in that car against cars that I shouldn't have been. And it was just a very good, a really, really good thing for me to go from kind of really not enjoying myself that much in karts, wondering if I'm good enough, to kind of constantly exceeding my own expectations in cars, and my everyone's, really, my dad's. I don't think any of us really expected it to go that well, but it just did. So that was fun.
I imagine the hardships that you've got from karting, if you were to pick a way around, it feels nice to manage that, because once you find the success which you found in cars, you've understood what it's like to not be great, to feel those lows of the kind of racing world in the go-karting. Then you're not competing regularly for wins, you're not kind of competing at the top, but obviously you've come into cars and now you're going, well, now that I am winning, I really appreciate this. And I'm like going, yeah, I want this feeling to continue. And I'm right in Formula Fords. Obviously, that's your main career pre coming over to the States. They're without the wings, aren't they? They're almost like those little torpedo cars. So they don't have the kind of the front or rear wings. They almost feel like they're great in a straight line, aren't they?
Yeah, like I only raced Formula Ford before I came into USA 2000, and they're a little different to the ones over here in the States and the ones in England, where they're similar, but so the Kent style was what I raced in New Zealand and Australia, and that's kind of the original plan. I think was me to do a couple of years of that, to kind of just get used to it. But then after 6 months of that, it was like I'm just polling and winning every race. So I think I need to do some race a bit more competition. And at the time, the most competitive open wheel championship in Australia, no doubt, is the National Formula Ford Championship. And it kind of died off, really. And then there was some Formula 4 stuff coming into Australia, which was a whole nother story. But basically it was not very good for the sport. And basically there was this big power fight of which championship was going to be the leading championship. And what actually ended up happening was Formula Ford was dying. They brought in Formula 4. Then that started to die, and Formula Ford had this huge resurge. So from the period of 2016, 2018, when I was in Australian National Formula Ford, was when it was at its best, which was really good timing for me. So I did a half a season with this kind of privateer guy that my dad kind of knew, and it was good for experience, but kind of went back to the karting thing of I did 3 or 4 race weekends and got my ass kicked. And it was just, later kind of found out, obviously the car wasn't that good. It was a great prepared car. I have nothing bad to say about anything, but the car just wasn't fast. And, guys that I was really dominating in state level in an older car were beating me in National Formula Ford. And I was finishing kind of just, again, middle of the pack for 3 races. And that really drove me insane, because it was I went through it in karting, and then in cars I had this great start, and I was 16, so I was young and kind of very inexperienced, and just you're a moody 16-year-old, so I was very yeah, I was very kind of I had this huge inner wound up so tight chip on my shoulder of wanting to show everyone what I could do. And the most successful and best Formula Ford team in Australia is Sonic Motor Racing Services is their official name. But I got lucky where basically after, I think I got 5th one race in this car, and I said to my dad, Dad, I can't do this anymore. It's that's the most that this car will do, and I'm assured of it. I think I said I was a cocky 16-year-old, probably deserved a good smack over the face, but I think I said Senna couldn't, something stupid like that, if I saw myself as a 16-year-old saying that, I would have slapped myself now. But that's how hungry I was. Because in karting, I kind of just accepted it and was just, not happy. But now it was like I was so angry, and because I felt like I started to get this belief of, I can do this. And I got a test with Sonic at the end of 2016, and a track I'd never been to before. And I remember just thinking like, I was relieved to the point of where like I was confident I'd be fast, but if I wasn't going to be fast in this car, then like I knew then, okay, like I'm just not going to be a race car driver. You know what I mean? Like if I can't win or be fast in this car, then I will accept that I'm not good enough.
Yeah, good clarity either way, pretty much.
Yeah.
It kind of was a career-defining one in terms of I'm either going to make something of this or this isn't for me, and you've got to find something else.
Like, I mean, the thing is motorsport is like my passion so much. Racing is, and the passion wouldn't have changed. It would have just been this thing of like, I still would have raced because I love it, but it was just like, okay, then I guess that's it. And the thing is, the dynamic with me and my dad is my dad's been around the sport a long time, and I can't say this without coming across a little bit blunt, but pretty much 90% of race car drivers' dads are living through them. Without sounding horrible, it's just how it is. Like, they couldn't have had the opportunity themselves to race when they were younger, and they've had a really successful business, and now their kid can race. So, the dad is usually the one that's like selling them how good their kid is and how proud of them they are, and like just, their biggest cheerleader, right? Like,
absolutely,
you could never do anything wrong in the dad's eyes.
Absolutely. I coach within the cricket. My job is cricket coaching, so I've seen it all the time. And
it's no different.
Get ruined by the dads because the dads are like pushing them so hard. Like, the kid's not going to enjoy it. You've got to let them go.
There's the two extremes. There's the dads which are like that, and then it's no different to any sport where the dads they're living so through their kid that they're either telling them how good they are and nothing's their fault or whatever. It's just a racing dad, we call it. And my dad's opposite of that. He has his own race team in Australia, which is quite successful in Porsches, actually, called McElrea Racing. And he knows the game. He knows how brutal it is. It's all he knows, just like it's all I know. So my dad is very blunt with me of like the reality of everything. Like, there's not one time, and this is like a saying at home, blow smoke up your ass, where you kind of
I've heard
where they probably the same in England, but it's basically just kind of, giving you a big head or whatever when you don't necessarily deserve it. My dad never has done that, and he's been really hard on me my whole career of the reality of it, and just that was the kind of thing from him as well. I was like, well, here's your shot, dude. Like, you're saying how bad the car is, and if you can't go quick in this car, then that's it, dude. Like, the literal thing between me and my dad, like the dialogue was like, you have this opportunity to test, and if you're right, like you're telling me you're going to be so fast in this car, then show me, basically. So that was really it. As a 16-year-old, like, that's the chat that me and my dad are having. And it wasn't that he didn't want me to race, but it was just, that was the reality, that was it. So I was wound up so tight within of just like wanting to show him, wanting to show everyone that I could do it. And, the test, I was like, went really well. And then I signed for them the next year. And this is where it actually kind of hurt me, like wanting to win so bad. I think I qualified off. I think there was like one time I didn't qualify I raced a Sonic for 2 years, for 2 seasons as a Formula Forward. And I think I didn't qualify on the front row once because of a mechanical drama, but every other time the worst qualified was second. Like, pace was not an issue. Like,
that's
I was
crazy.
very, very fast, but I was really fast, but just making so many stupid mistakes. Like, the first race of the year, qualify in the front row, then run off in the lead. Next race, qualify on pole at Wakefield, run off in the lead, start last. And my first ever race win in Formula Forward, I actually posted this on YouTube. Give a little shameless plug there, but
absolutely. You send me the link, I'll put it down in the description below. We'll get showing it.
No problem. Yeah, I'll do that. But I started, I think, last 18th or something, and I won. So my first Australian national win was from last. And then I think I gave someone...
You don't have to show off that much, surely. All right?
Yeah, I mean, that was just
a little bit of a go, haven't you?
That was a stupid thing, though. Like, that's how much I was shooting myself in the foot, as I actually got my first win from 18th, which shouldn't have happened, but it did. And it was cool. And then I got a penalty the next race, and there was some interesting calls that would go on. I think I would... It's a whole other topic for another time as well. But I got a penalty which put me into 10th, and then I won that race too. So it was like that year, very quick, but just a lot of stupid errors. Like, I went into the last round of the year, second in points, with a shot of winning it, and then just like DNF'd every race. I think I went from last to second every race. Like, just stupid stuff, like a young guy trying way too hard, really. Yeah. I was 17, and I wasn't really living the race car driver like life either. Like, I wanted it more than anyone else for sure, but I was a school kid, you know, I was going to parties with my mates. Like, I was having a normal kind of school kid life, and then going and drive my car on the weekends. Yeah, you know, didn't mean I didn't want it, but I just wasn't like
you
now every day.
Complete transformation yet that needs to happen to just kind of solely focus and go, this is my career, not this is something I just love doing.
Yeah, and that there was no question of it was going to be my career or not. But at the end of the day, I was still going to school. You know what I mean? I was still going to school, and
you got to be a kid, haven't you? So
yeah, and just I guess at that level as well, everyone else, most of the kids are. So it was one of these things where that was probably the first ever year I did where I actually had equipment to win at a national level as well. So that was kind of the biggest. Like, I ended up fourth in the championship after the terrible last round, which was disappointing for sure. And then the next year, I signed again and then just wiped the field. I think I won like 13 races, and I was a lot better, but I still made so many errors. Like, I should have won that championship with a round to go, but I think I got like like basically without the penalty points that I got that year, because I did some stupid stuff. Still learning. I was just green still. I think I got like a round's worth of penalty points, but I deserved a slap on the wrist for sure. But I think again, some of the calls were like interesting, but at the end of the day, you can't argue with it. You can't do anything. So luckily, I was able to get that done, and that was very important because in the previous year, after I got fourth in the championship in 2017, I went over and I got the opportunity to dip my toe in the water in the States and drive a USF car. And that's when I first got linked up with the Paps racing team. And I went into the official test at Indy. There was like 25 cars. Now knowing how it goes, like everyone tests the week before for that test, because that's where you get all the deals for the next year. And it's a big deal for the teams and the drivers, that test. And that's at Indianapolis, which is funnily enough where I live now. And I showed up having never driven aero on a slick tire. And just the way you kind of drive those cars is completely different to the Formula Ford. There's a few fundamentals which you learn on Formula Ford, which I still use to this day. Which, you know, and I think Formula Ford's the best category to learn. Like, if you can drive a Formula Ford quick, you can drive pretty much any car quick. But what I will say is the braking, going from the Formula Ford to the USF at first was difficult, just because it was a completely different style of driving. But considering how green I was, I think I ended up P3 in the test. And I was like, I mean, the team were impressed. I was impressed with like, holy shit, you know, like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, you know, racing guys that were like Red Bull juniors, and I was just some lanky kid from Australia who just graduated school who had no idea. Couldn't do a championship without running off the track half the time, but
Is that your tagline when you're selling yourself? I'm just some lanky kid from Australia.
Yeah, it's kind of true. I wouldn't say it's my selling point, but
yeah, I didn't actually think you would be selling merchandise with it on or anything like that.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I'm actually just a lanky kid who grew up in Australia, who's from New Zealand with an American passport, is what it should be. But
that's nice and bite-sized and catchy. Isn't it? That's not a mouthful at all.
It's a mouthful. But and I was like, I wanted to go race USF after that. Like I was like, okay, I want to go race USF. And this describes my dad for kind of the way he's kind of raised me and been with me. He knew if he told me, like, there was no way I was going to do the championship. One, money. Because the team were like wanting to sign me too, which was really cool. But my dad's like, no, like he hasn't won a championship. Obviously I was fast enough, but I wasn't ready to like go and put a championship together. So my dad actually told the team boss to tell, because he knew my dad knew me and knows me obviously, but if he said to me like, all right, we're going to go race Formula Ford now and win the championship, I would have been like, no fucking way. I want to go race. I want to race like in the road to Indy in America, like these awesome cars. Like this is, I was like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah.
I'm driving at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's like in cars with paddle shift and slicks and wings, and I'm just having a ball, right?
Yeah. Amazing.
And my dad's like probably had to let me come down to earth a bit. And he said to Augie Paps, the team owner, who obviously turned out to be one of basically family to me now. Finally, it's just funny how things work out. To send an email to me telling me that I should go back and win the championship in Australia and get the shootout ticket to go win the scholarship and then come and race in the following year. And I remember reading that and being like, all right, I guess I got to go do that. Do you know what I mean? And Dad knew that I wouldn't listen to him, but I would have listened to the team boss, because obviously the team boss, it's like, he's like, my thing was like, oh, I guess he's not going to let me drive, like doesn't want me. So, and it wasn't like a personal thing. It was just like, all right, like that's what I'll do.
Did your dad tell you afterwards that he had that conversation?
Yeah, I found out actually probably a long time after, but it wasn't like, oh really? It was like, yeah, I can see.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can see. I'm like, and it's in also like, luckily he did. You know, if that was maybe a normal father-son racing dynamic, probably would have come over, scrambled a budget together, like polled and won some races, but made silly errors. And it was really good that 2018 year. I won the championship really dominantly. If that's a word, dominantly. Yeah. I was dominant.
I'd accept dominantly as a word anyway.
Yeah, there you go. But I ended up, I would say comfortably winning it. And by the stat sheet I did, but because of all the penalty points that I had, it actually went to the last race, the championship. Yeah. So I won it nevertheless, as I should have. And I got to go to the shootout in America, the Road to Indy shootout, the Mazda Road to Indy shootout, scholarship shootout it was called at the time when Mazda was still involved. And I actually did 2 tests that year in USF again, and I actually topped those 2 tests. So it was quite good momentum. And then I was able to win the shootout too. So 200 grand from Mazda was pretty awesome year, to say the least. Like, won the championship, topped my 2 tests, and won the shootout, which was just a dream, because I'd been wanting to win that shootout for years. You know what I mean? Like, so long I had been working towards that. And then it was just like my trajectory, my whole career was kind of just like this, and then it was just like that.
Rocket straight up. You've been progressing up the Road to Indy ladder ever since, as much as obviously COVID's came in and played a little
Yeah.
bit of a part. But you've progressed through the stages stage every year, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like the USF year was amazing. You know, I was a full rookie. You know, I had never driven any of the tracks. I'd never driven a street track, never driven an oval. Every track, like I said, was new to me. And I was consistent in the first half of the championship, but Braden Neves, who was my rival at the time, was dominated the first half, but then we just went on a roll and dominated the second half. So I had like 12. I think I had 12 out of 14 podiums or something that year.
Wow,
very consistent.
Awesome.
Maybe 12 out of 15 or 13 out of 16 or something, but pretty much every race apart from a couple.
I mean, coming in as a rookie, that's really impressive to find your feet within that series very quickly. And do you think what we said, obviously that Formula Ford was a good grounding? How did you find adapting? Was it because other drivers were used to more testing, because you weren't used to as much testing, it meant that you maximized what you got and you were able to quickly adapt to that car, or was it something else?
Yeah, I think going to grip is always easier than going to less grip. So going from the Formula Ford, like I found it very easy to adapt to the USF the second time, because I knew like the brake shape was the biggest thing. You go from kind of braking soft in the Formula Ford and progressive to really hitting some initial pressure in the wings and slicks car. So that was the biggest thing to get around the first time I drove. And the second time I knew that. So once I kind of knew, I just had to adjust to that. Like the grip is just there and you just use it, you know? So that was really nice. And then I went, obviously, to new tracks all the time. And these days you have simulators and footage and data, and it's honestly not that hard to learn a track if you study well. So I used that to my advantage, all the old footage and data and driving the simulator when I could, because at the time I didn't have a simulator with me. But you know, I just really worked hard and making sure that I was prepared, and it was good because I would say even those 2 years in Formula Ford, even my championship year where I was dominant, I made a lot of silly errors, and I made a couple in USF, but you know, for the most part, if you look at that year, like I was so consistent and so many podiums, which was good. So I went into the last round of the year leading the championship, and you know, I extended the lead in the first race, and then going to the last race of the year, my car had an electrical sensor fail, so I didn't get to do a lap, and I had to start plumb last, which was very tough because my rival was starting at the front. And basically he kind of just got a free kick for the championship. You know, he did the job throughout the year for sure, but you know, I there's always things you could have looked back on, and if I didn't do this, like I lost the championship by a few points. But had I been able to qualify, have the opportunity to qualify, even if you just let me start 5th or 10th, you know, not 20th, I would have been able to kind of clinch it for sure. I have no doubt, but that's what happens in this brutal sport. And I got second in the championship, which that was tough because I felt like, you know, I had to go 2 championships in a row. Just the way the year went, you know, I came back from a huge deficit in the championship because he had a huge lead. And then the second half of the championship, I steamrolled it, got the lead back, which no one thought I was going to do. I don't think really anyone but myself maybe thought that I could get the lead back, because he won like 5 straight to start the year, and then I came back like really hard and he struggled, and the more I went better, the more he struggled, and it was just like it was falling into my hands. It was like nothing can go wrong, and it did. And then just to lose a scholarship like put me in a tough position. That's kind of where my momentum kind of stopped, I would say. And the next year I moved up to Indy Pro again with Paps Racing. I got a really good opportunity with them. Like I said, they're like a family to me. Obviously I drove them for 3 years, the last 3 years before this year. And 2020 was tough. Like, I think being a rookie team, there was a lot of lessons we kind of learned, which just made things probably tougher than they needed to be at times. But just wasn't a great year. I learned a lot though. I got 5th in the championship, won the last race. Just missed out on 3rd in the championship by like a couple points. But I started the year off with 2 DNFs in a row, which were brutal.
Yeah, always puts you on the back foot, doesn't it? You always then feel like you're chasing rather than getting ahead of the game.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you can't look back. That's the thing. It's like, it is what it is. And it just was a tough year. And then the next year was kind of like, okay, we had that learning year. Now let's go win the championship in 2021. And started off really well, but just again, it really, at times, like, I would say 2021 was tougher than 2020 because it was like, this is the year I have to win. Started off really good, won at Barber, poled at St. Pete, was in the championship hunt, and then kind of had this middle period in the year where it was just everything was going wrong. And it was just like, I was almost like, I want to go home, you know what I mean? Because it was like, nothing's going right. It was the lowest I've ever been, for sure. Yeah. Like, because I was like, this cannot get any better. Nothing, not pointing the fingers at anyone. It was just like, the team's putting like 3 engines in one weekend. And like, I'm seeing like how much effort everyone is putting in, like myself, the team, like I'm not pointing the fingers at anyone. It was just, couldn't really catch a break. It was just one of those racing things. So that was difficult, but right after kind of that, like a really, really low period, I have to thank like my family, my girlfriend, like a lot of people for kind of bringing me back up out of that really low phase. And I went and won the next race at Mid-Ohio, and it was just like, holy crap. I think I was like 7th at championship at one point. And then from there, the last half of last year, I dominated it. And it was just like, it was such a relief, but disappointing. I didn't win the championship because I would have loved to have given Augie a championship because he's done so much for me. He's brought me into his home, treated me like a son, and I got 3rd in the championship, and I went into I went into the last round with a glimmer of hope for the championship, which I think after all the struggles was very good to have that. But I think, it's tough to talk about because obviously the results I got in Indy Pro, I would say, I was definitely capable of a lot more, but I just didn't. And I'm not putting that on the team. I'm not putting that on anyone. It's just, it was what it was. Like, I have nothing bad to say about Paps because I would not be in the position I am right now without them. Because
do you find that it kind of, obviously the ideal path through a junior championship is to do what Carl's done, which is win every championship year on year, bam, bam, bam. You get to the top, you compete up in the kind of the big leagues. But do you think, obviously there's a pattern through your careers of going hardships, success, hardships, then finding back success again. Do you feel it's really helping develop? Obviously you can't see because your career is still developing and unfolding in front of your eyes, but do you feel it helps you deal with those moments of low better and has made you a better driver for it? Obviously, ideally, like you said, with Paps, you've worked as a team so hard and you would have loved a championship for all your reward, but what you've learned from it as a driver in your style and all those hard lessons, is it of benefit as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's cliche. It's like whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's like,
Yeah.
again, all these overrated terms, like most overrated terms, which you roll your eyes at, are true. Yeah, in the day, like, got to be having fun.
That's why they're so famous. That's why everyone knows.
Yes. Yeah, and like I was kind of touching on, it was very tough, like the 2 years there, but like I wouldn't. I'm the best I could. I'm in the best possible position I can be right now, because of the hardships I've went through, and like if I won both championships, the best possible position I could be in is driving Indy Lights and Andretti.
Yeah,
guess where I am. You know
driving
what I mean?
Indy Lights with Andretti.
Yeah. So it's one of these things where it's like it kills me to have finished second and third instead of first and first. And obviously as a driver, you have to believe you're capable of that. But I can't be more thankful for Augie, who owns Pabst Racing, for what he did for me, because I wouldn't even have gotten any pro car without him. And without him bringing me in, I lived with him for 3 years, sorry. He made a lot of things happen for me, like that people don't really know about, to get me in his car. And I wouldn't be in this position without going through that. Obviously, it would have been nice to have like won the championship to reward him and myself and my sponsors and everyone. But I wouldn't change it. As much as I would love to be a champion of USA 2000, the funny thing is I'm proud of what I did in USA 2000. Like I couldn't have done anything else apart from maybe a few mistakes, but I did, in my opinion, I did the job that was worthy of being champion in USA 2000. So I don't lose sleep over that, and I don't lose sleep out of Indy Pro anymore. But there was definitely a few times where it was just like, am I going to get through it? You know what I mean? And then to kind of have that run at the end of the year though was really nice. And when we were going, man, at the end of last year, we were going like the car was a rocket. Like I think I won in New Jersey by like 12.5 seconds. Wow. So that showed what the car could do and showed what I can do. And got me in the position where I am now, which is obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess it showed Andretti what you could do. So how I guess, that's the natural question. How did that opportunity with Andretti came about? Was it like an introduction through Augie, or were they watching you and they're going, look, we've seen what you can do, we want you to come and test for us?
Yeah, like it's never, I would say, unfortunately, it's never as easy as like it just happens.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky. I mean, I say lucky, but I worked my butt off, and a lot of people did for those results at the end of the year, but that helped my cause. And I basically, it was right after I poled or won at Mid-Ohio, I went to my team manager, Don Lambert, my current team manager, Don Lambert, who obviously wasn't at the time, and just introduced myself. Said, really want to drive for you next year. Introduced myself, I'm Hunter, got his business card. He's like, yeah, look, I think the best thing to do would be maybe see what you like, see what you think of us, see what you think of you in the car at the end of the year. And yeah, kind of kept talking from there, and then I kept winning, which helped, and then finished the Indy Pro year, got third in the championship, which again, I didn't go at the start of the year and be like, I want to get third in the championship. You know what I mean? But I think if you told me halfway through the year when I was seventh in the championship, struggling, just nothing working, I would have been like, I'll take that any day. You know what I mean? It's all perspective, right? So I think if you look at like the points in the last half of the year, it was like a huge win. Like it doesn't matter, right? But just to kind of sum it up, like the last half of the year, points wise, I mean, I had to have that to get back to third. So I did my first test in lights at the Chris Griffiths, which is the same test I did when I first drove USF car and first drove Indy Pro, blah, blah, blah. And it went like very well. Straight away, it was like, okay, this is good. It kind of was like the first time I drove a race car. It was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's working. And yeah, tested
Well, of course,
really
you
well.
had to sell it that you knew what you did. You got out of the car going, yeah, and actually it's just let's walk in the park, of course.
I was just excited. I think the team were laughing at me because I was so excited because, you know, you go from kind of doing like 230 kilometers an hour, like, you know, 130-ish to kind of, you know, 170, 180, 190, pushing 200 in these things, and you're just going so much faster. Like the jump is huge, honestly, from an Indy Pro car to a lights car. So much bigger, little heavier, but way more power, way more downforce. So it's like, and there's a turbo. So I kind of shocked myself, like how quick I was on it. Like I was like aware that it was very different, but I was like, feels all right. Like obviously Andretti has rockets, so that made my life easier too, being in an Andretti car. But yeah, at the end of the first day, I did 2 sessions in the car, and obviously it's all the regulars from last year and things like that, and F2 guys and whatever. And I was P2, like half tenth off my second session in the car. I'd done like 30 laps in it. And I was like, oh. Next day, went P1. So it was like, I ended up 3rd overall for the test of like the best time, which just depends on the session. You do your best time, but you know, went from kind of just straight into it really, from Indy Pro Kart, Indy Lights, and was just right there. And yeah, it's been really good. Obviously, pace at St. Pete was kind of shown.
I mean, yeah, it's the best kind of possible start, that, isn't it? To kind of rock up in your first race and get pole position. I know necessarily I guess that race epitomizes your racing career to date, doesn't it? Bags of talent in terms of raw speed is there and getting a pole position, and the race where just hasn't quite worked out, but I have no doubt that it's going to work out for the rest of the season. But I guess you'll talk about that St. Pete race, but do you find it frustrating that you couldn't just get back in the car, or there wasn't a race in like a month's time? Is it Indianapolis the next round for you guys? It's a long way off. Barber, of course it is, but it's still May, which is a long break between that season opening in February to obviously your second round.
Yeah, that's a thing. I would say that definitely is the old kind of, shall we call it, bandit Hunter? Yeah. But these days, no. I mean, look, the weekend was perfect. I showed up, put it on pole by 0.3, which, you know, it's not really, you don't really have the opportunity, or at this level, you know, the teams are very, very good. The drivers are all really good. And then, yeah, I just showed up and did that. It was like, okay, that's cool. Practice, like final practice for the race, was even faster. Like quickest again. And the race was perfect too. Like the thing I was concerned about was getting through turn 1. I was like, I just got to get through turn 1 and the race is done. And it was. I got through turn 1 and push to pass is like 1.5 seconds. So typically you see like the guys behind stay quite close until if there's a guy in second, he's burning out push to pass.
Yeah.
Because you get a 50 horsepower boost. And just, I mean, it's a lap time gain, right? So if you're 0.2 quicker than a guy, but he's got push to pass, he'll be catching you still. So you've really got to be like a lot quicker than them to pull away. And I was slowly pulling away from Christian. And I think on like lap 5, I broke push to pass range and I was gone. I think I had a 3.5 second lead on like lap 12. And a lot of people were like, you're pushing too hard, or you didn't need to push that hard. But the shunt I had, it wasn't a pushing mistake. It was like it wasn't a mistake of like I was trying too hard or anything. It was just I lost my cool because I got stuck behind Bogle. And basically I just got behind a lap car. Don't know how I did. He must have run off something because it was like lap 12.
Yeah.
And the rule is that you can't, like, they're not just going to let you pass type of thing. So you have to pass a lap car, which I think sucks. Because I think having a lap, it always is like you say that and then you never know, like, be careful what you wish for type thing. But if I was ever in the position of being lapped, I would not want to influence the leader's race as a lap car. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that he did that or whatever. I'm not putting that on Christian. Like, Christian came out to me and talked, and I have no issues with him at all. It was I shunted because it was my fault.
Yeah.
But I just got like a small concentration lapse because I was annoyed because I've just pulled a 3-second lead and this guy's in front of me and he's not getting out of the way. Whereas the reality of the situation was I had a 3-second lead. I could have easily passed him in a lap or two and there was no issue. So it was just a learning thing. Like, at the end of the day, like, I'm better for this. Like, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be so much better for this. And, you know, I think I showed that we're going to be contenders. I think, you know, St. Pete was a positive weekend and I did the job, but the only reason I didn't win was because of me. Like, no one had anything for me. It was a done job, and it's just like one of these things where you know, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. You know what Absolutely. I mean? It was one of those things where I literally just need to circulate to win.
But
all the hard parts done.
That must feel a little bit reassuring as well, because like, it wasn't like you were going, damn, I gave everything I got that weekend and I fell short. It was, you know what, I know where the error came from. I know I'm going to be better for it. And, you know, it's something that's, yeah, like you're going to say, it's going to stand you in good stead, because I don't think that flag rule's going anywhere anytime soon, even in the top level within IndyCar. So it's managing lap traffic, especially the guys who are on the lead lap. It's a difficult skill to maneuver, and yeah, leads can just completely diminish. Because I think on the Sunday, Scott, didn't he? He had it right at the end with Devlin and Flo coming right on his tail. So yeah, it is a real tough one to navigate, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I've had it before in Indy Pro too, like been leading and got a lap car, and luckily the guy flew off the road, so it was all good. But yeah, it's just one of these things where, you know, I'm going to be in that situation again. It's not going to happen, is it? So,
yeah.
Look, everyone's going to make mistakes. Top guys still make mistakes. Is this going to define my year? No. Did it cause me to not sleep for a few nights? Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I'm fine about it. Like, I learned from it and I'm going to be better from it. It's all true.
You're a racing driver. If you weren't beating yourself up about not winning, you wouldn't be a racing driver.
Yeah.
You guys are winning machines.
It wasn't even the point of like the fact that I was leading, or like, obviously I was leading and dominating, and it would have been, there's no reason I shouldn't have won on my Indy Lights debut by a mile, because I did the job. But I'm just annoyed because it was just, I let my emotion get the better of me. So again, like, everyone else is going to have a mistake. Everyone else of the year, like, it happens. Kirkwood drove into Malukas turn 1. Like, probably the dude that is the most successful of all time, road to Indy, had a terrible start to the year. What happened? He won. You know what I mean? Malukas didn't finish race 1. Like, the way the IndyCar points work now, because we've gone to IndyCar points, it heavily rewards winning. Yeah. So I think, you know, if I go win 2 races, I think there's a chance that I'll be leading the championship theoretically. You know what I mean? So it's going to be tough because HMD is strong. My teammates are strong. I'm not expecting just to go and put 3/10 in quali every time, because if I was thinking that and confident that I was going to do that, then I'd be getting my butt kicked, and it's just not the attitude to have, because it's a very, very tough championship. It's a very, very high level of drivers, but I did show I could do it at the end of the day. So I believe and I'm confident that I'm going to have a package to win every weekend. And I'm just maximizing myself, really. So I think there's, if St. Pete has anything to show, I think that we're going to be winning a few races this year, hopefully. And I'm just going to keep working on myself, keep getting better. But at the end of the day, I'm just living my dream, really, driving in Indy Lights for a team like Andretti, and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect sum up of your career in terms of where we've gone. That's been really kind of interesting, kind of getting to know your journey a little bit better and just seeing your path, because every driver's path is, although we spoke about it seems ages ago now with the karting, and everyone seems that kind of karting every weekend from there, each driver's path is unique to them. It's slightly different in seeing your path and the sacrifices you've had to make, and also the lessons learned on the way is interesting. I guess a couple of points, if you don't mind hanging around for a little longer before rounding off, is Ayrton Senna as a racing hero interests me. Obviously, you mentioned him a little bit earlier when you were going to slap your 16 yourself in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, why Ayrton is probably quite obvious, but how did it become to Ayrton? Because obviously I'd say of a younger generation, maybe Michael Schumacher had taken over that sort of things, Fernando Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen's of the worlds, they were the guys in the top single-seaters growing up. How did it get Ayrton? Was it your dad maybe showing old racing footage?
It was my dad. He was my dad's favorite driver. So it was mine too. I would say that a lot of my time as a young kid was watching old racing videos with my dad, and I learned a lot of the history of racing from my dad. I know a lot about old F1, old kart, stuff like that. I'm a nerd for that stuff. And quick answer for that. My dad liked him, so I did. And then I did my own research, and I think he was just so special because, I hate to say it as well, but I think him dying early in his career made him more of a legend, because it leaves that mystery of how much more would he have won? Would he have ever won another one? Certainly it was good enough, but being good enough and actually winning is two different things. So, I think he would have won more for sure, but it's interesting to see maybe Schumacher doesn't win 7, he wins 5 because Senna gets a couple, and it's just I just loved his win or Bennett type of thing. Not that it's necessarily the way to go, but I just loved his attitude just loved the guy, really, of how he went about it. I mean, everyone loves Senna, but I got introduced to him through my dad, really, is why it is a short answer. Yeah, it was.
He's a pure racer, and I think that's what probably appeals to a lot of racing drivers, isn't it? It was, like you said, win it or bin it type of attitude. Got him into a little bit of trouble sometimes.
There are some things that I do question, for sure. It's not like everything he does was perfect.
Well, no, absolutely. I think his quote for me always, where it's always get quoted for racing drivers. If you no longer go for a gap a racing driver, and you do realise he said that when he punted Prost in Suzuka, and probably could have killed him.
The funniest thing is, I love when it gets used by people going to the high carts or something like that. I love it. It cracks me up. But for sure, right? There's some things that he did. It's I think everyone at one point does something dumb, but
absolutely,
Senna for sure pushed some things to the limit. It was dude, that's a bit ambitious of you, mate.
Maybe that's a bit across the line. But then when he was good, he was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I get a last one just to finish off before I let you go. I'm very grateful, obviously, given so much of your time as well to chat, and I'm sure everyone's found it really interesting. I always find it interesting for drivers. I know you've kind of grown up through the US, but you started your career outside of it. I always describe the US racing as the most diverse style of racing for single-seaters, at the least, because of the oval, street tracks and road courses as well. What was it like coming into that? Obviously, like you said, you've never driven ovals before. And do you really thrive that challenge of being on three very unique, I would say, things? Obviously, traditional is street and racetracks in the European and outside of European scene, but adding that oval into the mix, it really is a complete test of skill, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different discipline, that's for sure. Like the first time I drove on an oval was a track that's like 30 minutes away from where I live in Brownsburg, a track called Luxoil Raceway, or now it's called IRP, like it's called back in the day. Mm-hmm. And it's a 5/8 of a mile, very, very small, boring type of oval, where you've got to run like the high line against the wall, basically. Yeah. Very unique in the sense of there's no track in IndyCar where you're like running the wall. It's more honestly like a NASCAR dirt style way of driving now I think of it, but it teaches you a lot nevertheless. And I was like really weirded out. Like this feels weird. Like, but I was kind of quick. I was like, you know what I mean? Like it was encouraging. Like I was in the top 3, top 4 in the first time I ever drove it over was like a series test. And I was like, wow. But, then when I raced there, first time I qualified in oval, my first is a 2-lap average. First lap provisionally P1, second lap in the wall. So kind of learned the hard way of the limit on an oval, that you can't go past it. And then Gateway in St. Louis is a completely different type, more traditional type of oval, kind of high, go very high to low. And it's got one corner which is flat out, another one which is like a lift and a downshift, maybe a little bit of break in traffic, and it's flat out only really in clear air. And the first time I went there, it was a huge struggle. Just we struggled with getting the car in the window. In the Indy Pro car, just was a really tough weekend, but you have those. And then the next year, I had a very fast car, and I really loved it. It was frustrating not to win. I was fastest in every session, but came third. Just had a bad quali and had to start too far back. But really, really loved that, because it was like driving a car when it's in the window on an oval. It's very fun, because you get very aware of like what the car's doing, because you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, right? Yeah. So you know what you need. It's a very fine line on oval. You have to have confidence to carry a lot of speed in and turn really late to try and get the exit, but you can't over secure the rear to have understeer, because it's like you have to basically have the car as free as you can to rotate as good as it can, but be confident in the rear. So, you know, the first time I went there, it was very scary, because it was like the rear just wouldn't sit down. Yeah. But the next time I went there, it was like the car was awesome, and it was so fun, because it was like, you know, I'm easily flat in 3 and 4. Turn 1, I'm driving in so deep, and it's like then you figure out like the little kind of things, and the more laps you do in the oval, it's just like the more comfortable you get, because like you see, like, and I've talked to guys like in IndyCar who only race ovals now, you know, and an oval is something that anyone can really, like a race car driver that is, they can always get better on an oval. Whereas a road course, you need a lot of natural ability, and you can always get better, because if you're not getting better, then you're going to get left behind. But on an oval, you always have that ability to kind of like get better, and experience is so much on an oval. But on a road course, it's like, you need to be very naturally fast, and you need to have that skill, and then you need to be good at communicating, engineer, blah, blah, blah. Obviously on the oval, that is very important as well, but it's a different discipline. There's a little bit of crossover, but you have to be very kind of humble in the way of like, when you're learning, like, okay, like I need to, if the car gets like the first couple of days in the oval, it's like, if you have a snap, pit, like don't try and overdrive what you have, because on a road course, you can squeeze every last bit of juice out of the car. Yeah. And do a really good lap. Maybe not be P1, but you can put maybe a P6 or P5, P7 to P8 car third maybe, or you can wrestle it into the top 10. But on an oval, if your car's not the window, you try to wrestle that thing anymore, you're in the fence. So you've really got to do a good job of working with your engineer to get something that you're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, it's still it's very hard. Like mentally, it's something that I'm still getting better at. Like I've got second and third in oval. I'm yet to win an oval race. I think this year should be a good opportunity, but obviously coming from a road racing background, it's very different. But I do love the, like you said, the diversity of the road, street, and ovals. And the more I drive on an oval, the better I feel, and the more I like them too.
Fascinating. Nice. And I think that's probably a great place for us to end it today. Hunter, I've really enjoyed kind of getting to know you a little bit better, and I hope everyone listening at home has really enjoyed getting to do. I'll leave in the description below that first win in Formula Ford. You'll send me the link for that.
No problem.
From there, and I'll obviously leave a link to your social medias as well. Cool. Now, Hunter, what we do in ends, so when we have our drivers on, the traditional end on the channel is going, I'll end off with, for now, you Indy fans, keep racing. And I get the drivers to join on the keep racing. Pagano's leading at the moment. He went full out. He was trying to win an Oscar or whatever. He was throwing arms about or whatever. But are you up for ending off in traditional fashion?
Keep racing, yeah?
Yeah, you got to elongate the keep. You got to go keep.
All right, let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah, you ready?
I'm ready. Yep.
Okay, so I'll lead in with, for now, you Indy fans, and then we'll end it from there. You got it?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, thank you, Hunter, for coming on. Thanks, everyone, for watching at home. But for now, you Indy fans, keep
racing.
Racing.